You know, when we think of the Christmas story, we think of shepherds, angels, a manger. But right at the very beginning, there's this thing most of us just skip right over, a super long list of names. It feels, well, boring. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most scandalous parts of the whole story? Today, we're going to see why this family tree isn't just some dusty old record. It's actually the explosive opening statement for a story about a wild, scandalous kind of grace, right? I mean, let's just get into it. The Gospel of Matthew doesn't kick off with a bang, it kicks off with a genealogy. So and so was the father of so and so, on and on. It feels like a roadblock, like something you just have to power through to get to the good stuff. But what if? What if the list is the good stuff? Yeah, you know the drill. It just keeps going, this long chain of begats that can make your eyes totally glaze over. And it feels like, okay, this is just some historical housekeeping. You got to do the paperwork before the real story can get started. But here's the thing. The author, Matthew, he was a brilliant writer. And I mean, nothing in his work is there by accident. He has packed this list with clues. He's basically hiding a bombshell in plain sight, turning what seems like the most boring page in the Bible into a radical, powerful statement of purpose. So how do we start to crack this code? Well, the very first clue is a big one, and it's hidden in who Matthew decides to include in this list. Okay, so you gotta understand this was a huge deal back then. In the ancient world, family lines, status, inheritance, your whole identity, it was all traced through the men. It was completely patriarchal. So for Matthew to deliberately break that rule and shine a spotlight on 5 different women, that wasn't just a little weird. It was like a giant, flashing neon sign telling you that this is absolutely no ordinary family tree. And this is where it gets really juicy. It's not just that he included women, it's which women he included. These aren't the polished, perfect, respectable matriarchs you might expect to see. Oh no. They are outsiders, rule breakers, and survivors, each with a pretty shocking backstory. Okay, so first up is Tamar. Her story is wow. Her father-in-law, Judah, basically broke the law by refusing to give her a husband, which would have left her completely destitute as a widow. So she takes matters into her own hands. She disguises herself as a prostitute and tricks Judah into sleeping with her just to get the son she was legally owed. So is she a victim fighting for justice against an oppressive system? Or is she a sinner who used deception to get her way? It's messy, right? It's morally complicated, to say the least. And you know what's incredible? When Judah finds out what she did, his own verdict is, she is more righteous than I. He actually admits that his failure to do the right thing was a way bigger sin than her deception. The story doesn't call her perfect, not at all, but it shows her as someone fighting for what's right in a really broken world. All right, so this theme of unconventional justice keeps going with the next woman on the list, Ruth. But to really get her story, you need to know this one crucial term, the kinsman redeemer. This was a male relative who had a legal duty and obligation to rescue a family in crisis. And a lot of the time, that meant marrying a widow to protect her from poverty and to carry on the family name. Now, Ruth wasn't just a widow. She was a Moabite, a foreigner. She came from a people that Israel often considered their enemies. So she had like zero legal claim to a kinsman redeemer. And yet, she chooses to stick with her Israelite mother-in-law, Naomi, embracing a life of poverty and risk out of sheer loyalty. Her story is just this incredible picture of sacrificial love that smashes through racial and social walls. And it all leads to this incredibly bold, risky move where she basically proposes to her kinsman redeemer, Boaz. And then we get to the big one, the most famous king of all, David. But listen to how Matthew phrases this. He doesn't just say Bathsheba. He says David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Oof, that phrasing is so intentional. It deliberately puts the focus, and all the shame, right back on David. See, Matthew is forcing us to remember the whole ugly story. David, the great hero of Israel, saw his friend's wife, wanted her, and slept with her. Then, to cover up the pregnancy, he tried to trick her husband, Uriah.
And when that didn't work, he had his loyal friend and soldier murdered on the battlefield. This isn't just a mistake. It's adultery, deception, and cold-blooded murder, all committed by the guy at the very top of the royal family tree.
So why air all of this dirty laundry? Matthew is making a massive theological point here. If the greatest king, David, is put in the list right at the moment of his greatest sin, well, that means nobody gets into this family because they're good enough. This isn't a hall of fame for moral superstars. It's more like a hospital for sinners.
So you see this pattern building, right? The excluded, the broken, the scandalous, and it all finds its ultimate climax in the final woman Matthew puts on the list, Mary.
I mean, if the whole point is to show that God works through the unexpected, the overlooked, and the marginalized, then Mary is the perfect grand finale. The Savior of the world doesn't come crashing into a palace. He comes quietly through the womb of a poor, unknown, unwed teenage girl from a town nobody cared about. She is the ultimate final subversion of everything the world thinks of as power and importance.
And I love her response, because it's so incredibly human. She doesn't just blindly say, okay, cool. No. First, she thinks furiously. She's trying to process this logically, like, what is going on? Then she doubts honestly. She asks, how can this be? She's not being cynical. She's looking for a real answer. Then she goes and finds community. She runs to her relative Elizabeth to talk it all through. And it's only after all of that, the thinking, the doubting, the community, that she offers this sincere surrender, giving up her own control.
Okay, so let's zoom out. What does this all add up to? What's the big takeaway from this scandalous family tree? It's a message about a kind of grace that is specifically, intentionally for outsiders. This genealogy isn't just a list. It's a wrecking ball. It comes in and just demolishes the barriers that we humans are always building up. The gender barrier? Smashed, by including women. The racial barrier? Gone, by including foreigners like Ruth. And the moral barrier? It's completely obliterated by including people like Tamar and King David right at the point of their biggest failures.
I mean, just look at the contrast. It's so stark. Where the world says you need power and status, this family tree lifts up the marginalized and the despised. Where the world demands racial purity, it welcomes outsiders. Where the world demands moral perfection, it centers the broken and the sinful. It's a complete and total reversal of values. And that's the key.
This list isn't just a prequel. It's the mission statement for the entire story that's about to unfold. It's telling you, right up front, before you even get to a single miracle or sermon, what this whole thing is really about. It's about a kingdom that is built not on human achievement, but on a scandalous divine grace. It's a story for all the people who think they're disqualified.
And that just leaves us with this final thought to chew on. If this is the family that Jesus chose to come from, this messy, scandalous, beautiful, broken line of outsiders and sinners, then what does that say about who his message is for today? It kind of suggests that the invitation isn't for the people who have it all together, but for all of us who know that we don't.